about talking about finding God in literature, often it seems to me now that the two things, God and the arts, are almost compartmentalized in my life. That, you know, I go to church and talk about God, and I go to writery type events and talk about books, and the two don't, they do come together in my writing, but in my life they don't come together as often as I would like, which is why it's wonderful to have the opportunity to do this with you folks. Now, I do think there is a tremendous place, and this is the type of writing that I certainly started out doing and did for a long time, for literature, the main purpose of which is to encourage the faithful in their faith, devotional type of literature. For many years, I had several years, I had a monthly column in a Christian women's magazine, where I would each month write about a different woman from the Bible, and write about her story and what there was in it that we could relate to our lives today. And certainly all the stories in that book and all the stories that I wrote when I was doing that column really were all carrying out that same exercise, which was saying, you know, how can I delve into this ancient story and pull something out of it that is for today and that is relevant to me today. I ended up writing several books about women of the Bible, beginning with one about Queen Esther, who had always fascinated me, and then with another about Deborah and Barak, the judge Deborah. I was fascinated that there would be a story in the Old Testament in what was such an incredibly patriarchal society, this story of a woman leader. How could a woman possibly rise to that position? And then a man, a warrior, who says he won't go into battle unless Deborah is riding with the troops. And I thought that's an amazing story. And again, you know, so many with these stories, whether from scripture or from history or anywhere else, there's no way to really enter into these stories, as I see it, except through fiction, except through imagination, because there's so much that we don't know. And all of these books that I did about characters from the Bible, they were all published by Christian publishers. And a publisher that is specifically church-based and writing for a church audience does impose certain limitations, because you can write about, in an imaginative ways, about the stories of Scripture, but you don't want to be too iconoclastic. Anybody here read The Red Tent, Anita Diamant's book, The Red Tent? That's a lovely book. I love that. You'd never be able to publish that with a religious publisher, because she takes the heroes of Scripture, and some of them are actually the villains of her story. She shows the women engaging in goddess worship, which we know from all the constant threats about it in the Bible and the warnings that they did do, but in her case she portrays that as a very positive thing. In recent years, with the two books, By the Rivers of Brooklyn and That Forgetful Shore, which have been published here in Newfoundland by Breakwater Books, they're the first books that I've written that weren't published by a Christian publisher intended specifically for a religious audience. And I found that actually freed me up a lot more to be able to explore some of these questions and to be able to explore both the dark and light side of faith. And I think that any literature, and indeed any art that's going to attempt to talk honestly about faith, has to do that and has to explore both the dark side and the light side. A woman in the book, for those who are unfamiliar with it, a character named Ethel, who commits what she thinks, again, is a terrible, terrible sin when she's very young. When she's a young woman, and really lives through the rest of her life believing that she's paying off her deal with God, that she has to behave in certain ways in order to be forgiven. My favorite passage entirely from By the Rivers of Brooklyn, it's Ethel's deathbed scene.
Oh, yes, right.
Definitely. Also
yes.
his favorite passage,
Definitely.
fortuitously.
Yeah.
And I wanted to kind of close, or come near to close, with reading this. She's a very old lady by now, and she's lived, you know, a pretty unhappy and bitter life in many ways, and she's in a nursing home now. One night, in her bed in Shady Acres, Ethel has a dream. She dreams about heaven. Not surprising, perhaps, given that it's Sunday night and the church crowd have been here holding services in the chapel. Ethel always goes, even when she's not feeling well. She likes when they sing the old hymns. Not the young crowd with the guitars and the jangly new music, but the crowd that sings When All My Labors and Trials Are O'er, and We Are Nearing Home, and all the old favorites. Ethel likes to think about heaven. She imagines it in the usual way: mansions, streets of gold, angel choirs. In her dream, when she finds herself in heaven, it's nothing like that. Heaven, it turns out, is Annie's backyard in Freshwater Valley in St. John's, except a little bigger than Ethel remembers it. But she knows right away it's heaven. Heaven is a July day in St. John's, warm but not sultry. Annie has a line of washout. The wind fills the white shirts and they dance on the line like angels. Bert sits on the step beside her. That's her dead fiancé from when she was young, looking just like he did the last time she saw him, 22 years old, one arm laid on her shoulder. On the other side, sitting just as close, is Harold, about the same age, smiling like he's just told a joke. Annie is somewhere inside the house making supper. In the yard below, Ethel can hear the children playing, their voices ringing with laughter. She looks at Bert, then back at Harold, thinking she should feel uneasy, though she doesn't. "It's all right, girl," Harold says. "Is it, Ethel asks?" "Yes, it's really all right." "Everything," Bert echoes. "Everything is all right." And hearing them both say it, she knows it's true. Some people are not in the yard, but she knows they must be somewhere around. Their absence does not feel like a loss. Frances must be in the house with Annie, and Ethel's own people, her parents and her sister, are probably in there too. And Jesus. She almost asks Harold where Jesus is, because Harold would know if anyone would. As it's heaven, she expects to see him. But then she doesn't need to ask, because she's sure he's around. She can feel him, probably sitting down in the kitchen with Annie, having a cup of tea. Ethel thinks she should go in and find him. She owes him an apology for something, some misunderstanding years ago. But he'll probably come out and sit in the yard in a few minutes. It's so nice out, and whatever misunderstandings there were between them, she's sure he won't hold it against her. He's bound to be in a good mood. Sitting at Annie's table, having a cup of tea and a slice of homemade bread with molasses is enough to put anyone in a good mood. It took Maria to point out to me, and this is a perfect example of people noticing things in your books that you aren't aware of putting in there, that of course Jesus having a cup of tea and a slice of molasses bread at Annie's table is a Eucharistic image. The other thing, apart from the image of the wash on the line looking like angels, that you may or may not have recognized as shamelessly stolen in that passage, is her former fiancé and her husband's brother, Bert and Harold, sitting on either side of her and telling her everything is all right, everything's going to be all right. And that's a deliberate echo of Julian of Norwich. All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. And I feel that in the end, this is all I have to offer through fiction in writing about faith, which I will always write about because to me it's central to how I see the world. I don't find that I have any easy answers or any promises that I know how things are going to turn out, only an assurance that somehow, in God's will, all manner of things will be well.